So lesson 6, your website. Yay! Ah, all right, here's where I'm having trouble already. So today's workshop, the big picture, what we are going to be talking about. So we'll do a little quick recap, which I sort of already did with Lex about why clarifying your personal brand is important. Then we're going to talk about why you need a website and what is it for. And then I have a lot of case studies. And finally, at the end, your homework is going to be basically a website audit. And it's very simple and straightforward. It's basically a checklist that you go through that helps you decide what you want to tweak or improve or add to your website. So, recapping what we talked about last week, branding is who you are, and marketing is how you build awareness about that, about your work and about yourself as an author or as an artist. So how to use your branding keywords and key phrases. This is basically your compass that helps you decide on all kinds of things, like what color are you going to use for your website? What font are you going to use? What's going to be the tagline on your homepage? What items or content are you going to include in your email newsletter? How are you going to come up with structures for or simplify your strategy for social media? All of that can sort of flow down from those keywords and key phrases. And then next, does your online presence reflect what you want your ideal readers to think of you? So you may have put up a website a long time ago, and at that time, what you did reflected where you were in your career or what you had available. But you always want to go back and look at your online presence um, on periodic, at periodic points to make sure it's still reflecting what you want it to. So that's what this whole lesson is going to be about. So here's a quote from one of my favorites, Seth Godin. We call a brand or a person authentic when they're consistent, when they act the same way, whether or not someone is looking. Someone is authentic when their actions are in alignment with what they promise. Showing up as a pro, keeping promises, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't. And so what we're doing in this lesson is really not just looking at your actions, but looking at your website. Is your website in alignment with the promise of your brand or your work? So interestingly, people perceive you as being more authentic when you take a more professional approach to your work. So this is something that I've noticed just over the years of working with artists, is that sometimes, all of us, when we're starting out, we feel like we have to apologize a little bit. We're not quite there yet. We know where we want our work to be ultimately, and we're working towards that, but maybe we haven't perfected it yet as much as we want to. And so sometimes we can say to ourselves, well, I'm not quite ready, so I don't really need that professional website yet. But what I would like to argue is that if you start presenting yourself to the world as a professional, even before you feel like deep down in your heart that you are a professional, it actually helps you get there faster. So the way that you talk about yourself and the way that you show up in the world affects how people perceive you. So that's why I want you to take your website very seriously and really, whether you're a published author or not, you present a very professional presence in your website to the world. So let's talk about it. What do you need a website? Why do you need a website, and what is it for? A website is your space on the internet. So you might have an Instagram page, you might have a Twitter account, you might have all sorts of other social media places. And really those belong to those corporations. So you're taking up space on those social media accounts and you're using their platform to get your message out, but you don't own your account. So they do have the ability to shut it down if they wanted to for any reason. And I do know this has happened to people with Instagram or Facebook running afoul without even realizing it. Like one example I can tell you is somebody who I think was a coach like me at some point who had done some sort of video training, like a Facebook Live thing, and people were asking her questions in the comments, and a lot of the questions were the same. So she was just copying and pasting the same reply to all those comments, and it got flagged by Facebook as being a bot. And so her account was shut down even though she wasn't a bot, it was her, copying and pasting replies. And I don't know if she was even able to get her account back because, when a gigantic corporation like Facebook shuts down your account, it's very difficult to talk to a real person to explain what was going on and to get things back on track. So that's one reason why your website is important. You need a place that you have total control over that nobody's going to shut down. And then a website is where all your breadcrumb trails lead to. So one thing that I've heard art directors talk about as being a pet peeve is when they find an artist on Instagram or on Twitter and they want to go to that artist's website because they want to see your curated presence. They want to see the portfolio that you are putting forward to industry people to show your work. And when they look on your Instagram account or your Twitter account and they can't find a website link, it drives them crazy. I have had art directors tell me this. So there's another reason why you need a website. And then your website is a place that you curated. So you have gone through all of your material and you may have created lots and lots of writing or artwork over your career. And your website is a place where you pick and choose and you put only those pieces that really present yourself as you want to be seen. So that's the other reason. And then finally, a website is where you can talk directly to your audience and ask, would you like to keep in touch? Would you like me to reach out to you every now and then? And that is your newsletter. So many authors and artists do not have newsletters. So it's not abnormal if you don't have one. But one of my missions in life is to try to convince more authors and newsletters to have, more authors and artists to have newsletters because, again, it's a way for you to have control over your audience. So you have their email addresses and you have a way to communicate with them directly if you want to. All right, so a quote from Austin Kleon. I've quoted this many times before because it's one of my favorite quotes. Don't think of your website as a self-promotion machine. Think of it as a self-invention machine. Fill your website with your work and your ideas and the stuff you care about. I absolutely love that idea of a self-invention machine because it puts you in the driver's seat, right? You get to decide how the world sees you. So you invent yourself through your website. How does your website fit into your whole marketing ecosystem? This goes back to the infographic that I showed you in the masterclass, and I'm going to go through it really quickly here. So basically, your website is your home base. And hopefully you have a way in your website that you're publishing fresh, inspiring info. This could be your blog, or it could be your portfolio if you are periodically updating it with new work. And then you have a newsletter, which is where you're reaching out to the people who want to hear from you. And it's okay in the beginning if that's 10 people. Everybody starts there. I started there. And then social media is where you can reach out and find new readers, new fans. And then there's outreach. And this is something we'll go into a lot in the third month of this course is how do you find new people and bring them into your world? And so everything that you're doing, your newsletter, your social media, your outreach, all of these are leading back to your website. And that's why it's your hub and it's so important. So as I said here, your home base, your website is the hub and your marketing activities are the spokes. So let's go into a ton of examples here. So here's the first example, which is my client, Misako Rocks. So I have to minimize Okay. So first of all, she has her tagline right at the top. I'm Misako Rocks. I'm a Japanese manga artist living in New York City who's published several manga books all over the world. So when you land on her website, if you've never heard of her before and somehow you came across a link as you were Googling and somehow landed on her website, immediately you are going to know exactly who she is and what she does. And so if you happen to be an art director, say, and you're looking for artwork, you know, oh, this is an artist who does manga. If I have a project that might be a manga style, I might want to look at her portfolio. Or if I'm looking for something totally different, right away I know she's not for me and I can keep on with my search. So that's what you want your homepage to somehow communicate to people right away what you do and who you are. Oh, okay. And so then if you go further into, if you go scroll down on her homepage, you'll see that she has classes and private lessons and a YouTube link. So this is her behind the scenes stuff. This is how she's keeping you up to date on what she's doing. So she doesn't have a blog really. She's more focusing on social media, and that's quite common. But what's really cool is you can have that on your website to keep so people can see your newest stuff. And then she has a newsletter sign up right up at the top of her homepage. Again, this is something I recommend. If you have a newsletter, don't hide it. It's so that you have to scroll way down your homepage to find it or even go to another link to find it. I prefer and I recommend if you put it somewhere above the folds, meaning you don't have to scroll on your homepage in order to see the newsletter sign. And then she has outreach. So her basic form of outreach is that she teaches classes to kids about how to learn how to draw in the manga style. And she specifically aims her classes at ages 7 to 11 years old, I believe. And then she also does, as I said, does daily Instagram drawings and videos. And now we're going to go into a whole lot more examples. So in the first part, I'm going to go through some sort of categories of types of creators so you can see the difference in how you can create a website for different stages of your career or different types of work. And then in the second part of the presentation, I'm going to sort of go through the components of your website one at a time, from your homepage to your portfolio to your author about me page and your contact page, and show you specific examples of how you can tackle all of those different elements. So an unpublished author. This is an example I've showed before. Kathleen Kirkwood is one of my clients who's in her 70s and she's publishing her first book in January of 2022. And when you go to her website, which I had to convince her to create, and I should tell you, she has thanked me so many times for convincing her to create a website because people visit it and they tell her, wow, I'm amazed about everything you do. It's so cool. And they find out about it through her website. So right now, she does have a book that is signed up and under contract coming out. But when she first created this website, she didn't. So originally, this books link up here was really her works in progress page. So let's go to her website. So if you click on, can you guys, I just want to make sure, can you guys see her website now? Yes? Okay. So when you click on her books page, this shows you both the book that she has coming out, and then it also has the book that she's working on right now, which hasn't been signed by a publisher yet. So you can do both. You can do either way with your own website. You could have a link to just your published books, and then you could have a separate link to your works in progress, or maybe a blog where you talk about your works in progress, or you could have one single book page and you kind of separate it by published books and then as yet unpublished books. And all right, this is an example of a multifaceted illustrator, John Hendricks, who does both children's book illustration and he does editorial illustration. So on his website, you can basically click through to different sections of his portfolio. So in his menu category, the categories that are on his menu at the top of his website, you can go straight into the specific type of art in order to view either his editorial illustration or his original books or his book covers that he's illustrated for publishers. And so that's very helpful if you are an editor or an art director looking for an artist to do a specific type of work. So that's another thing I recommend for artists. If you do a couple of different types of artwork, make sure that it's very, very clear when people visit your website right away. Make sure you've separated your portfolio so everything is not all in one place. So if there's an art director looking for, say, storyboard or character design, you have a section just for that. If you have children's book illustration or picture book illustration, you have a section just for that. If you have comics and graphic novel illustration, you have a section just for that. All right. So here's an example of a YA author who gives back to the community. I love this example because there are a lot of people in this community, and I see a lot of creators in the children's book community who are incredibly generous and love sharing their passion for what they do. And it's just such a great way to connect with people and make them love you. So this is Holly Black, who's a well-known fantasy author, and she has this wonderful section on her website called For Writers, where she has really super helpful advice on how she built her writing career. So let's just check it out. So first of all, she has writing advice, which is basically a long Q&A page. Like she talks about, do I need an outline? How do I outline? And then she has links to other articles about how authors create outlines, etc., etc. So these sorts of Q&A pages are so much fun, and they're relatively easy to get started with. You just create a Q&A page as soon as somebody's asked you a question. So then when you have that one question, you create that Q&A page on your website, you answer it, and then every time you're out and about and somebody asks you a new question, or you get a question on your Twitter account, or when you're talking to one of your peers, you just add that question to your list and answer it. And it's such a useful way to add content. And here's a creator who has a very compelling author visit page. So if you're somebody who really loves getting up in front of kids and doing workshops or teaching them how to create comics or teaching them about science or history or anything at all, having a really good author visit page on your website is very important. So this is Max Bralier, who has the Last Kids on Earth page. Last Kids on Earth series. And if we go to his website and look at his author visit page, he has a frequently asked questions section right at the top where he answers the type of questions that a school administrator or a librarian might have when they're thinking about booking him. And then he has these really great testimonials. And so it's just a very clear, simple page that makes it easy to decide whether or not he might be the right author for you to contact. For your school. And then an illustrator with a beautiful online shop. So I know some of you create artwork that you sell either as merchandise or original art prints, anything like that. So if you want to have a shop on your website, I'm actually a huge fan of selling your work. Definitely, we want to monetize our work as much as possible. So the more that you can think about positioning yourself and kind of elevating your brand to make yourself seem cool or hip or ultra cute or whatever it is that your audience is looking for, the better. So this is Pete Oswald, who's a very well-known children's picture book illustrator, and this is his homepage. So right off the bat, he is promoting his shop because as you can see, the button that is overlaid on this sort of splash image at the top of his website says shop now. So that's another thing to think about. When you're designing your website, what is your number one priority for people visiting it? Is it for them to look at your portfolio? Is it for them to book you for an author visit? Is it for them to shop? Is it for them to buy your new book? Whatever that thing is that you want people to do when they first visit your website, put that front and center above the fold and make it easy for people to do. So in this case, obviously, Pete Oswald selling his work is important to him. And this image, this photograph in his studio is such clever positioning because he's making it, you see this incredible studio space that's really inspiring. And you can tell he takes a fine art approach to his picture book illustration, and it makes you want to buy his work. So being strategic about the imagery that you use on your website is really critical. All right, so let's talk about the essential elements of your website. We're going to go through, these are the 5 essentials: your homepage, your work page, which could be your portfolio, or it could be your books page, or it could be your works in progress page. And then your about page, about you. That's super important. A pet peeve of mine is when I go to a website and there's no about page and I don't get a sense of who the person is behind the website. And many people, the first place they want to go is the about page on your website. And then a contact page. You don't necessarily have to have a separate contact page. You could have your contact information on your about page, but whatever you do, make it easy to find. Don't hide your email address or hide the way for people to get in touch with you. And then finally, a newsletter sign up. And then here's some optional items, which are really awesome. You don't have to have them, but they are a big plus on your website. One would be a blog, because that's a way for you to keep people posted on your newest work or what you're thinking or your creative process, whatever it is you want to blog about. The second would be testimonials. This is either reviews of your books that have appeared in journals or online, or things that teachers have said after you've done an author visit or a reading, or even a quote from your mom. You can make it funny, but just any sort of quote from other people that are essentially social proof about other people valuing your work. And then next, author visits and workshops. You don't have to have that if it's not something that you do, but if it is something you do, you should have a page specifically about it. And then an online shop, if that's something that you do. And then something that's specific to children's books or graphic novels would be downloads or resources. So if you have coloring pages, or you have a teacher's guide to your book, or you have an activity, or you have a discussion guide, or anything at all that's complementary to the work that you're doing, those are super popular, especially with librarians, teachers, booksellers, etc. And parents, of course. And then finally, videos. If you can have a video of yourself in action, this could be a link to a YouTube or a Vimeo video. People love this because this gives them a sense to see you and find out what you're like in person, hear your voice. So I'm a big fan of putting videos on your website if you can. So I'm going to do a little tiny overview of tech stuff. This is definitely not my specific area of expertise, but I have built websites in the past, so I know a little bit about it. And so I can show you kind of my own personal, what I've learned about what's available in terms of tech. But this is something where you probably want to hire a professional to get help or talk to somebody who really is a specialist. So in terms of options for what to create your website, what platform to use to create your website, the ones that I know are really popular are WordPress, which is super robust. There are many websites built on WordPress. Squarespace is another fantastic all-in-one solution. WordPress is really more, you have to have a little more technical expertise to use WordPress. My websites are built on WordPress, but I do work with web developers to help me with the stuff that is a little bit above my area of expertise. Um, so if you don't want to handle all the technical stuff, I recommend not using WordPress. So Squarespace is one. There's also places like Wix and Weebly, which I don't know as much about. I know that they're very popular because I think they have free versions. Um, if any of you have had experience with any of these platforms, you can mention in the chat if you've had negative experiences or positive experiences. There's also this this platform called Cargo Collective, which I think is specifically aimed at artists. I don't know too much about it, but you can check that out. Then there's Big Cartel and Shopify, both of which are specifically geared towards people who want to sell things on their website. So if having an online shop is really important to you, then you might want to consider Big Cartel or Shopify for your website. And if you're looking around at other people's websites to get ideas and you come across somebody's website and you really love it and you want to figure out what platform did they use, you can use this link. Just go to whatcms.org and then there's a little like search bar and you just paste in the URL of the website that you're visiting and it will tell you what platform that site is running on. So that way you can find out if you want to sort of use their template. All right, so I've already gotten to your weekly challenge, but as we go on, you're going to see I'm going into this in great depth here. So what we're going to do for your weekly challenge is we are going to audit your website. So in the PDF for your weekly challenge this week, it's basically a checklist. And you're going to take that checklist, you're going to have it in front of you, you're going to look at your website, and you're going to just make a check like, yep, I've got this, I've got this, I got this. And then when you come to something that you don't have, you can decide for yourself, is this something that I want to add or improve on my website? And then at the end of the checklist, there is basically a space for you to write in your to-do list. And then you can take that to-do list and you can prioritize it and just when you get the chance, tackle it in priority order and go through to improve your website. All right, so we're going to start the checklist with your homepage. And these are the questions that you're going to be asking yourself as you go through your homepage. Is it immediately obvious who you are and who your audience is? Is your site navigation clear and easy to understand? Oh, one thing I should mention here in terms of making your site navigation clear and easy to understand. Sometimes I see people who have websites where they've kind of used clever names for their menu at the top. And I can't think of an example off the top of my head. Maybe in the chat you guys could, if you think of something. But I recommend that you make it very clear so people don't have to think. Like they know immediately, oh, here's your portfolio or here's your blog. Like for instance, sometimes people have journal instead of blog. I mean, that's pretty obvious, but again, I'm not thinking of a good example right now. Maybe in the chat you guys can think of it, but just make that navigation obvious. And then, do you have a newsletter sign up form that's above the fold, meaning you don't have to scroll to find it? And do you make it easy for people to connect with you on social media or email? Personally, I prefer to have a footer on my websites that has my email address so that no matter what page you're on my website, you always see my email address. So it's always easy to get in touch. All right, so here's a couple examples of websites where I feel like on the homepage, right away, you immediately know who this person is. You get a sense of their personality and their navigation is super clear. So this is Elise Gravel. She's a huge favorite of mine. She's a French-Canadian author and illustrator, as you see right up here at the top, with a really quirky sense of humor who does fantastic work for, I would say, early middle grade readers. And her menu, one of the things I love about it is that it's handwritten. So, and even the social media links are hand drawn. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Reddit, it just makes it feel very cohesive. The whole thing, it just gives you such a feeling of colorfulness and humor and lovableness. And that's basically her personality. And then here's a very different example. So this is Rainbow Rowell, who's a YA author who's also written some graphic novels. Um, and one of the things I like about her page is this really clever logo at the top. So she is not an artist, but she still managed to imbue her website with a really um, strong visual sense. And so she has, I don't know where she got this really awesome logo, but it's, it looks like an embroidered pocket logo thing, and it says Rainbow, a writer. So right away, she's a writer. And then she has a slider, um, sort of slider thing at the top of her homepage where she goes through and she has header images for all of her books that she wants to promote. So each header image is kind of styled with different colors and different art, font style and everything to kind of give you a sense of, well, let's go to her website and I'll give you a quick example of what I mean. So when you scroll through here, you'll see that she has all her different books. Like this is a holiday book. She has something she did with Marvel. She has something that's sort of, it might be it's an Amazon original story. And for that, the artwork included a cup of coffee. So maybe it's a novella, maybe it's short, I don't know. But it's just very clever. And I also like the fact that she has a newsletter sign up, both in her header here and also right here on her homepage right there. She also has a cool FAQ section, which is funny. So yeah, she's got a lot of great stuff on her website. All right, so now let's talk about your work or your portfolio. And depending on what type of a creator you are, whether you're a writer or an illustrator or you're a writer artist, you might have different sections. So you might have a book section and a portfolio section. Or maybe you would have a portfolio section that's broken down into different types of artwork. So if you have a book section, you want to have your book covers front and center. You also want to have short descriptions and review quotes if you have any. And you want to have links to buy the books. You would be surprised that I sometimes go to author websites and they list their books, but they don't have a link to buy the book. And you can be sure that sometimes if people land on your website, they want to buy your book. And definitely have links to buy your books. So works in progress. If you don't have any published books yet, you can still talk about the work that you're working on. So you could have a short description about what you're doing. You could have a link to behind the scenes info or to your blog, however you want to structure it. But it's really, really, people are always curious to know what you're working on. So definitely okay to have a works in progress before you're published. And then portfolio. Your portfolio should be curated. You should go through it periodically and get rid of work that doesn't represent who you are as an artist now, and also that doesn't represent the type of work you want to be getting. So if you, for instance, let's say you work with self-published authors, and some of them you illustrate their books and they're the type of book that you would like to be working on professionally, but others, you kind of just do it for the money. Well, don't put the work that you just do for the money and you really don't want more of that work on your website, because you don't want to encourage people to be sending you more work of the type that you're not as interested in. So definitely, I see a typo here. Quality is more important than quantity. So it doesn't matter if your portfolio isn't gigantic. It matters more that you've narrowed it down to your best work that represents the type of work you want to be getting. Also, tag your images. So what I mean by this is when you upload your image to whatever platform you're using, whether it's WordPress or Squarespace or another site, you will almost always be given, I think pretty much every platform is going to give you the option to add metadata for your images. So that means you can add a title, you can add keywords, description. There's several different places you can add metadata. Use those spaces to add as much information as possible. So for instance, if you do fantasy, let's say dark YA fantasy illustration, you would want to tag every image that qualifies for that as dark YA fantasy, you know, black horse under moonlit sky, forest in background. You know, just describe your image as much as possible, um, using as many keywords as you can think of, because that's how Google finds your images. So if you, there are instances where an art director or an editor might be just literally Googling for artists on a certain, in a very narrow genre or type of style, or even medium. For instance, they might be looking for pen and ink or watercolor or something like that. So the more that you can, the more words you can use to describe that image, the better it is for Google to be able to find your work. And here's an example of a really good books page. This is from Jean Luen Yang. So when you go to his website at the top, this is not his homepage. This is his books and comics page. But when you go to his homepage, right up at the top, this books and comics link is right there. You click on it, and then he has basically a gallery of all of his book covers. And when you click, here, I'll go visit the site. So when you click on the individual books, it gives you a link to then go to a specific page about that book. And okay, so here's an example. Jean Luen Yang does not have a buy link on his website. So in order to buy his book, you have to click this more information page. And then that takes you to the Macmillan page, and that's where you can click on a link to buy it. So personally, I think it would be nicer if he had the buy link right on his page, so people don't have to keep clicking through, because they might not realize they can click through to get to those buy links. All right, and here's an example of a creator who hasn't been published yet. So this is Jen de Oliveira, and her first book is coming out from Little Brown, I believe in fall of 2023, if I remember correctly. But I'm just gonna click through to her website. So let's go to her homepage. So on her homepage, that's where she posts her webcomic, and her webcomic is how she got the book deal with Little Brown, I believe. Personally, I would like it if she had on her homepage something that said like kids comics creator, and then my book, and then the title is coming out fall 2023 or something like that. Because in order to find that information, I had to go to her about section. Yeah. So I went to her about section, and that in the first paragraph it says, in 2023, the first book in a series of Reggie graphic novels will be published by Little Brown. As I said, personally, I would like this information to be on the homepage. But what I wanted to show you is that even though she's not yet published, she has a lot of awesome content on her website. So you can scroll and see all these past comics featuring Reggie. And then she has this kids corner, which has some really, really cute how to draw step-by-step stuff. And then a scavenger hunt, a tic-tac-toe dance party. It's just really cute, really, really wonderful. All right. And then this is an example of an artist who doesn't have a publication deal yet. This is one of my clients, Lindsay Lee. We're working on a book proposal right now. But on her website, her portfolio is really clean, and it's like right on her homepage is basically her portfolio. So if you click to her portfolio, and then if you hover over these images, it tells you what category these individual galleries are if you click through. So she has a children's book illustration gallery. She has a science comics gallery. Then she has a couple of specific projects, a folklore series, an online comic called The Cremation of Sam McGee. She has concept art, character design, another specific project. She has horror art, and then she has storyboards. So it makes it really easy for you if you're looking at her work and you're considering her for a specific type of project, to look at the specific type of work that is relevant. All right, your about page. So I really love about pages. I love creative about pages. So your about page should be written in a way that reflects who you are. So if you're kind of like a geeky comics nerd and you love talking about all sorts of trivia about comics history, then work that into your about page somehow. Or if you're really silly and goofy, make your about page silly and goofy. I really prefer that about pages not be written in a really formal, like bio sort of way. I just think, why not show your personality on your about page? And then I also recommend that you have a headshot or a picture of yourself. It could be a self-portrait that you've drawn if that's what you want to do, but just some sort of image so people see who you are. And then think about your ideal readers and think about what they might want to know about you. So, like going back to that portfolio I just showed you, let's say you're a horror writer. Your ideal readers might have really specific questions about, where do you get your scary ideas and are you ever scared of anything? Like just think of the questions that they might want to know and make sure that you answer those questions on your about page. And also, another thing I recommend, does not just apply to your about page, but it applies to every page on your website. For every page, think about what you want people to do after they've visited that page, after they've read through everything. So at the end of your about page, maybe you want them to visit your portfolio, or maybe you want them to go to your online shop. So at the end, have that link say, to visit my portfolio, click here. Or interested in shopping some awesome posters, click here. Something like that. So here's a couple examples of great about pages. So this is Dan Gutman, who's an incredibly prolific children's book author who does the My Weird School chapter book series, which actually just came out with a graphic novel. And his about page, I'm going to click through to his site. So actually, if you go to his About Dan link, he has a bunch of links here. So first of all, there's his story. He says, my story, and I'm sticking with it. Then he has questions kids always ask me. Then he has tips for young authors. And then he has puzzles. There's a ton of quizzes here. I'm not sure what these are. And then he has cool links. So he's just like throwing himself into this and really giving you a 360-degree view of who he is as an author. And his about page is very inspiring because he talks about his whole, like how he got into writing, which is a really interesting and funny story. All right. And next, Lucy Nicely, who is a graphic novelist. I love her website because it is so clean and simple and beautiful. I also love the fact that these little, these low, which I call them icons at the bottom are actually GIFs. And so they have these really simple little animations there that are just so cute. Definitely make you want to click on them. And if you go to her about page, there's a nice picture of her right up top and then a contact. So she has her contact information on her about page. It's okay to do that if you prefer not to have a separate contact page. And then she has a really simple short bio that tells you who she is. And then she has a longer bio where she talks about her childhood and she has a bunch of links to different projects that she's worked on. She has a link to a video, a picture of herself at Comic-Con with her husband, and then a full publishing history, links to all her books, and then she talks about her current project. And upcoming, I really like that at the bottom she says, upcoming appearances. None! It's a pandemic, and I have a 4-year-old kid. See you on the other side of all of this. Okay, so your contact page. As I said, you don't have to have a separate contact page. You could put this information on your about page, but you do need to have this information easily accessible on your website. Your email address and your social media links, whatever social media accounts you have, and then if you want to have a contact form, that would be on your contact page. And you can customize your contact form however you want. So if you wanted to find out from people, how did they find out about you? You can have that as a question on your contact form. You would be surprised at how many people dutifully fill out every line on your contact form, even if it's not a required item. And that can be super helpful to you if you're trying to figure out how people found out about your work. And then who are you? You could have a checklist there. They're a student, parent, librarian, editor, art director, etc. Or whatever else you want. So here's an example of Cherise Miracle Harper's contact page. I like the way she says, what should we chat about? Which is basically the subject line. I like how she phrased it. Again, you have the ability to customize all the questions or the headings of your contact form. So you can be creative. And I'm just going to quickly take you to her website because it is really interesting. Let's go to her, her homepage. So she has, it's really, really, really simple. It's just her name at the top and then this GIF that says time for fun. And if you look at the links at the top, you can tell she is a fun person. So she has a link to her artistic embroidery, a link to her comics, and then she has a bunch of comics here. Comics and Beasties, which is something different. I think this could be, let's click and see what that is. Moving comics and personal Beasties. These are little animated, looks like embroidered thingamabobbies. I'm not really sure, but you can tell that she is one quirky person. So it definitely conveys her personality. And then let's look at the FAQs. So she's got a few FAQs here. All right. And then here's the bonus pages that you could have on your website. You don't have to have them, but if you want to have them, a few of my tips about these items. So a blog. I love blogs because they're a way for you to keep people posted on what you're doing. And again, you can customize your blog and make it about, you could do book reviews, you could do creative process, you could do frustrations with your current work in process, joys and triumphs with your creative process, whatever you want. Social proof, I do love it when I see testimonials on people's website. And this can be worked in a really sort of non-obtrusive way. So if you, for instance, if you have an author visit page, you just have a couple quotes of people teachers who've had you come and visit their class. Or if you've worked with, let's say, an author and illustrated their book, you could have a quote from them about how much they loved the artwork you did or how smooth and seamless the process of working with you was. Any sort of page where you can add a quote, go ahead and do it. And then make it easy for people to understand what people should hire you for. So if you do author visits, have an author visits page. If you're available as an illustrator for self-published books, or if you're available as an illustrator for storyboards or whatever, have a page that explains how people can hire you and what you specialize in. And make it easy. Oops, sorry guys. Make it easy for people to buy from you. So you have an online shop. If you have an online shop, you want to have excellent photos and product descriptions. So people know, like for instance, if you have posters, how big is the poster? What kind of paper is it printed on? Any of those specifics are always helpful and they make your online shop feel more professional. And then if you are the kind of creator who loves working with kids and doing how to draw stuff or teaching or anything like that, resources and downloads are super fun and an easy way to add value to your website. And then finally, videos of yourself in action. So I'm going to show you a couple examples of these things. So let's look at Remenegi. I showed her website in the masterclass that I did. She is an amazing blogger about the creative process, about getting published, about life as a graphic novel creator. She writes these in-depth, really, really thoughtful, helpful posts about being an artist. So I highly recommend her blog. And I'm not sure how she got her book deal or her agent, but it may very well have occurred because her blog helped her get known in the industry. So this is an example, Max Meow, of a creator who puts quotes or the testimonials front and center on their homepage. This is John Gallagher. Max Meow is a comic series, a graphic novel series that just came out, I believe, in the fall of this past year. And right on his homepage, he has a quote from School Library Journal. And below that, let's go to the site. The loading time, that's one thing. This page took a little bit long to load, and just so you know, that does get you penalized by Google. Loading time matters. So make sure to optimize the images that you put on your website so that they don't take too long to load. You can Google that, how to optimize images for loading time. So on the Max Meow website, if you scroll down, he has quotes from Kirkus Reviews, Kazuki Buishi, Judd Winnick, John Green, Ben Hackey. So many, wow, amazing people. And then he has quotes from kids, Kevin, 1st grade, Miloob, 6th grade, Emma, 6th grade, Cole, 5th grade, and then a video down at the bottom. So this really gives you the sense like, wow, people love this series. So it's very, very effective. And then here is the website of Nathan Hale, who's really known for historical graphic novels for kids. And his website is quite interesting because it is super duper simple, but the links that he has on his homepage show you what's most important to him. So basically, buying his books or hiring him for a school visit. And I did want to show you his school visit page. So he has some images of himself, and then he talks specifically about what's in the presentation. He talks about how he does workshops. He tells people what supplies are needed, how long they take, and then he gives you the cost. So of course, school administrators and librarians are always wondering how much is this going to cost. So he gives that right up front. And he talks about locations. He talks about tech needs, book signing. So basically, he's giving every single piece of information that anybody could need to hire him for a school visit. And because his graphic novels are about history and they tie into curriculum, I'm sure that he is very much in demand for author visits. All right, and then here's a wonderful example of an artist who does a good job with online sales with her shop. So Rachel Ignatowski does these highly illustrated, beautiful nonfiction. They're not really picture books. They're aimed at an older age level, but it's illustrated nonfiction for kids and adults who love beautiful design. And she, on her website, she sells specifically puzzles and posters. So if you go click on the posters link, she has basically a gallery of images. Let's look at this one. And so the title for this poster is Food Chain. Learning about the food chain is important to understanding our world around us. The sun fuels the plants that feed the animals that decompose into the ground. Learn about the ecosystem with this educational art print. So this will definitely appeal to artsy parents who care about ecology. And you can pick it up. You can pick it up on her shop, which I believe is on Etsy. And I like the way she titled her link here, Make It Yours. So you click there and that takes you to her. Oh, it says, sorry, this item is unavailable. But at any rate, let's look at her puzzles. Oh, she has beautiful, beautiful puzzles. Women in Science, Workings of Planet Earth. Wow, super cool. All right, and then what did I want to show you here? I just love this website too, and I put it here for a specific reason. Let's just dive in. Oh, and I have the wrong link. So let's see, we'll go here first, and then I'm gonna put in Mika's phone. And all right, Oh, activities. That's what I wanted to show you. She has really, really cute resources. So she has how to draw, but she also has this design a food truck printable PDF. So kids can print it out and decide what kind of food they're selling. This is really creative. I've never seen a drawing page like this. Oh, and then inside a food truck, what will the kitchen of your food truck look like? Drawing donuts, draw your own donut creations, coloring pages. How many squirrels can you draw in this tree? Can you draw 100? It's just so creative. I love these resource pages. All right, and then Jared Krasachka is a master of getting his name out there. I don't know how he does it. He does so much. But if you take a look at his website, he has TED Talks, film and TV, web series, author visits and keynotes, online classes, sketchbooks. Oh my goodness. So if you go to online classes, he does weekly art courses, this comics club. I guess they're paid, so that's really cool. Because I know he does free classes online, but I guess he also has a paid version. So he has free short stuff. Let's see what's under web series. Draw Every Day. That's what it's called. Draw Every Day with JJK. So he does these really cute short videos on YouTube showing the drawing process. And then obviously he uses that to get students for his online courses. So he's really into video, the film and TV. Oh, okay. In development. Wow. So he has all kinds of stuff. He's amazing. All right. So I think we've finally come to the end of the presentation. To recap, you need these essential elements: a homepage that communicates who you are, a books or a portfolio page that's easy to navigate and understand and buy your work, an about page. Sorry, not to well, buy your books, and if it's your portfolio, decide whether or not to hire you. And then an about page that communicates your personality, a contact page or your contact information that's easy to find, and a newsletter sign up. And then you might also want a blog, an author visits page, a workshops page, a teaching page, a shop, a resources or downloads page. And here is the homework. I'm going to post this as soon as this lesson is done and we've logged off. I will post this PDF inside of the activity feed for you to download. And I'm just going to quickly show it to you. So basically, this is just a repeat of the homework that we've already done. So this is your why statement and your brand keywords, key phrases. But if you scroll down below, basically, here's the checklist. So you just print it out, go through each page on your website, check things off, and then whatever you haven't checked, you decide for yourself, is this something that I want to tackle? And then you can put that in your action list. All right, now it's time for a little Q&A. So stop screen share. And I haven't been looking in the chat at all. So I don't know if you guys ask questions, but why don't you just start by raising your hand if you have a question. Yes, Jeremy.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if you think writers should we pay people to do thumbnails for us to help us stand out for our work, and just how to kind of stand out visually if we can't illustrate or draw?
My gut instinct would be no, you don't need to pay somebody to do that unless you, well, like Rainbow probably, I don't know how she got that logo on her website, but it definitely conveys her brand. So it could be worth paying somebody to create a logo for you, but I wouldn't pay for artwork. There's other ways you can be creative with typography. I would look at writers. Just look at lots of authors you admire, look at their websites and see how they communicate their work.
But won't most of them already have somebody who's created a page for them?
Right, they created a book cover, that's true. I still think it's possible well, you could use Canva, for instance. Do you know Canva?
No, check it out.
Canva is an online design um, app, basically, that has a lot of stock images. They have stock photos, stock illustrations, and elements, and it's very, very easy to use. And you can use it to create artwork for pretty much anything, like a blog post, so on Instagram. Yeah, Canva would be a great place to go. I think you could easily put it together in Canva.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Steve.
Hi, I actually had two questions,
Okay.
but I'll be quick. So the first one is about the shop, and I wanted to know if instead of like paying the service fee for like I have my free version of a website on Wix
Mhm.
right now, and I think I can transfer most of this stuff to WordPress for like a more open source option later. Instead of paying the service fees to run a shop off of that, does it look unprofessional if I just link my buy here to Etsy listing or some other e-commerce?
I think that's fine. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. No
Okay.
problem at all. Yeah, I would just do that.
Okay, I totally forgot what my other question was, but I'll raise my hand when it comes back.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Lex.
Yeah, my question was regarding if a website should be author focused or property slash book.
Yeah.
All the ones you showed seem to be focused on the author. So I
Not
don't know if
all of
that's
them.
except for
Max
Max Meow.
Yeah, Max
but
Meow is not. Well, and also Reggie, the Jen de Oliveira, the artist who has her book coming out with Little Brown, her site is the URL, I think, is Reggie Comic or something like that. So there are people who use you know what? I think Lex, you have a big ongoing series, right?
right.
I think if you're that type of creator, it could make sense to use your property as the the URL rather than your name, because you intend to be working on this project for a very long time and it's sort of epic and ongoing. In that case, it could make sense for you. The other thing is you could kind of do both. Like you could have your URL of your name, but it just redirects to your
Yeah, no, and I actually currently have that, but part of me wonders if I should just have like a separate author site. Is that too much? One website about the brand, one about the author.
I don't think I think you could have that on your existing website. That's information about you as an author.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think you need a separate website unless you had a completely separate type of work you were doing.
Okay. I guess my other question, somewhat related to that, is how much time do you expect somebody to be on your website? I recently redid my website to make it more just like, here's the information you need. And prior to that, it was this big immersive, like way too many blog posts kind of experience. And so, because somebody told me like your website should really be like a business card. Like this is the info you need. Not like people just don't spend that much time online anymore. So I didn't know if you had a particular point of view about that.
Yes, I do agree that your website should communicate information really quickly. And it is likely that people spend not much time on your website, but you never know how they're going to land on it. That's why I think it's good to have, because there's so many different types of people who are coming to your website and they have different purposes for coming to your website. That's why you need to have different sections that are basically speaking to different audiences. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Steve, did your question come back to you?
Yeah, but I think it was already answered in the curriculum. It was about mailing lists because I'm struggling to wrap my head around the logistics of that.
That's what we're talking about next week and the week after. Mailing list is such a big topic.
Okay, awesome. Also, but yeah, so also talking to or Lex, when you were talking about your thing, it reminded me of my deal. So I got an unpublished book, but it's only 28 pages.
Mhm.
And like, because when I made it, what I was keeping, I was gearing it more as like a picture book, but
Mhm.
I was like, I want to make it like a comic book format, and then I couldn't figure out how to get my writing dumbed down to like a picture look book level. So
Mhm.
I bounced it off of some friends and worked it into where it was like what I recently found out was middle grade level, like
Mhm.
8 to 11, 8 to 12.
Mhm.
Uh, but is it plausible to sell my story? Because I want to make 3 of them
Mhm.
in like a 28-page installment, 30-page
Mhm.
installment, 30-page installment, like almost like individual issues, and format it to the 9 by
Mhm.
6,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then after that try and publish it as a collected like
Yeah.
actual graphic novel, like 80, 90 pages.
Yes,
That's
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You can
okay.
tell it that way.
Amazon publishing is becoming more of a viable option in my mind, and
Mhm.
I mean, just for the time being, I was talking to a friend of mine who's an editor,
Mhm.
um and she was wondering, which I didn't even consider, about if you are publishing something on your own and then doing your best to sling it like to libraries and stuff like that, will that hurt your chances of getting it picked up by a more established publisher later down the line? I think we answered this question in the masterclass, but
Mhm.
like a lot of agents, when you query, they're like, are you already published or are you already agented
Mhm.
in the questionnaire? And I
Mhm.
just want to like have a prediction
Yeah.
if I try and publish it myself,
Mhm.
if later on it's realistic that I can then go to a more established publisher and say, what can I put this on you?
Oh, that's a hard question to answer because it can make it hard to get a traditional publisher if something has already been published. Usually, the way to get a publisher if something's been published already, like self-published, is make it really, really, really successful. So then if you've sold thousands and thousands and thousands of copies, then publishers will be like, oh, okay, maybe we're interested.
Okay.
I know that's not,
Thank-
yeah, maybe not the answer you were hoping for, but yeah, I think that's usually,
well, I mean, not necessarily, but like it's still good. Like I don't want to hold out on something when I'm trying to turn this into a career like
yeah,
today,
that's
you know.
that's my attitude. I feel like just get started, do what you can, and honestly, if you self-publish something, it could end up helping you get a book deal for something else because people have seen one thing that art directors have said to me is I don't sometimes I'll go to Instagram, I see a piece of artwork, I think it's really cool. I go to that artist's website, but I don't see any examples of them carrying a story from beginning to middle and to end. They need to see that you have the ability to carry, you know, a story through an entire narrative arc. And that's what you can do with the work that you're putting out there right now. You're showing that you can do it.
Yeah.
And then ultimately you might end up, you could get hired by a publisher to work with them on a manuscript they have, or maybe you have a different original idea that you then bring to a publisher and it makes you more credible because you've already published on your own.
Okay. That's good to know. So early on, I would like when I was sort of weighing the cost of putting my time into this instead of putting out tons of job applications, I was thinking that I would have this as like a proof of concept that I'm able to take a thing from beginning to end and show it to publishers to try and get freelance work, or
Mhm.
art directors at least.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of sounds like you just sort of like what you just said, some in my mind kind of reinforces the
Mhm.
strategy.
Yeah. I think that's effective.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Alrighty. Well, as usual, we went a little bit over, but thanks for your patience, everybody. So I hope I see all of you for tomorrow's interview with Jean Luen Yang. And I think the Kids Comics Insider event is office hour, which is just a free-for-all chat. And then the group coaching call is, I believe, at 4:30 on Thursday. 4:30 Eastern. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.